what we've got here is failure to communicate.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
They're staring at me. See it?
UFC 274. Wow. How you feeling after that one?
Not too bad, man. Honestly, it wasn't the worst card in the world. Pick wise, it was kind of hit and miss. Where I picked my top spots was, I kind of broke some rules on myself there. Chalky women's MMA line. I had Norma Dumont pretty high, regardless of my opinions on that fight. At the end of the day, it didn't go our way. So
She won.
I agree that she won, man. I thought the third round was dicey, but this is just MMA judging, right? Like, they always take takedowns and clinch control over the fact that who's doing the most effective striking. And I thought Norma landed the better shots in that round and deserved to win it.
Way more.
Yeah, but once again, golden rules, man. You don't bet chalky women's MMA. And to put them minus 240 or whatever as a top ticket when you know that fight's going to probably look like a pick 'em, it's mild stupidity. So,
unless it's Lupi Godinez.
yeah, she looked like a
but
fucking...
yeah, man. I mean, it is true though, and then we'll actually sort of get into that this weekend with Chukagian and all them. But unless somebody is dominant and taking somebody down, like I don't see Amanda Hebos doing it this weekend. I don't see. It's going to be very interesting. In most women MMA fights, what ends up happening is you're going to look at who's better in the stand-up. It's going to be a back and forth kickboxing match for the most part in most fights. And that's what you want to go with, a la Angela Hill. So we'll get into those fights for the future. But yeah, I was pretty high on Lupi Godinez. That was my big spot of the weekend. I'm glad I really sort of hammered that and focused on that as my main. Where I made a mistake was Blagoy. Just listening to other podcasts, listening to you, other people. I can't remember if you said inside the distance, but a lot of people were saying inside the distance. So I touched that up a little bit. That was a waste of time. I'm trying to learn the art of staying off spots and picking my spots, picking my battles. And I think we're doing that here too. We haven't been doing the parlay. And I think, Lupi was a good spot. I think Norma won straight up at her in a win condition parlay. And I think, she won plain and simple. Obviously, we get to Rose and, a little sprinkled. Normally, I'd be a lot heavier on Rose. Thank God I wasn't. But yeah, man, I don't even know what that fight was. I know everybody's talking about it, but just delusional, I think, is the best word to come out of that fight. What did you think of that?
Yeah, well, it wasn't an eventful fight. A lot of people are talking about this week, this weekend. I think it's a big thing to talk about, though, is they need to really just figure out the judging system. Like, at the end of the day, like 10-10 rounds should be a thing. And at the end of the day, 3 out of 5 of those rounds, man, like, you shouldn't be able to award a winner to one of those rounds. And you look at some of those rounds, man, like, you get a takedown attempt mixed with like 7 punches. And it's like, how do you really award that to somebody? Call it a 10-10 and base the fight off the dominant rounds where you can clearly determine a winner. To actually physically have to choose somebody who won those rounds, nobody could do that, man. They don't make sense. Like, it's, and then it said that you find people in positions where title fights, did Rose really lose that fight? I don't know. I don't really think anybody won that fight, but
yeah, I think I would almost rather see the belt just be vacant after that fight.
Yeah.
Never mind the next fight on the card, which was Charles Oliveira against Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje came out doing what he does. He really abandoned the boxing. I can't remember how many fights ago it was where his boxing looked slick. He actually went into a boxing game plan and actually looked pretty solid. And he's totally abandoned that, apparently. He was just swinging for the fences. And had Charles got rocked himself too. But had Charles rocked bad, dropped him twice, but he lives in chaos. And, I've talked in the chat and talked in the past about how Charles needs to be careful living in chaos. Eventually it's going to catch up to you. But man, why not just keep rolling with it until it doesn't? Like, you're the champ, defend a couple times and call it a day. Charles looked great. What were your thoughts on the main event?
Yeah, once again, just kind of a battery on my part, man. Like, anybody who follows our podcast or follows me in general with my MMA picks knows that I have a bad tendency on fading Charles Oliveira. And, shout out to our boy John and our Donttap group chat. He always calls me out on it. And I kind of just have to eat my words on this one, man. Like it wasn't. I was just too high on Gaethje, and honestly, with not a
But
lot of reasons.
what did you call though? Gaethje inside the distance?
No, so if you follow my official picks, my official pick was under 2.5, which I believe hit.
Okay.
And but I did call Gaethje inside the distance. I thought that he'd be able to
That's not
withstand.
a bad pick though, man. Even after the fact, like I don't see that being a bad pick even after the fact because he dropped him twice and he was like if, depending on the referee that you have in there, that could have been stopped, right?
Fair,
so I'm not
fair.
saying that, and I'm not saying that Charles is going to live by the sword, die by the sword, and he is one of the most vicious, ferocious guys as a champion right now that there ever has been. But I'm just saying he did get dropped. And in that moment, he even dropped back. Sure, he came back two right away and whatever else, but still, Mark Smith's in there, that fight's over. And so I don't think it's a bad call. I'm not defending and saying that, fading Oliveira. I'm not defending you on that. I think that's just a dumb thing to do. But I don't think that Gaethje inside the distance was a bad call. I'm still defending that. But anyways, we'll move on. Let's move on to UFC Fight Night, Blachowicz against Rakic. This is fit to be either a snooze fest, and I could feel it, or it could end up being one hell of a fight. And I know, yeah, sure, one or the other, 50-50, but these two have I don't know, there's a recipe for this to be just a lot of watching each other. And I know that we got two big guys that like to slam, but there could be a situation where they're watching each other quite a bit. And man, a lot of people are fading Jan. I think right now, where's the line sitting at? We got Jan coming in at 28-9-0 against Alexander Rakic coming in at 14-2-0 with the Twitter handle and the big mouth. What's the odds sitting?
Yeah, right now Rakic is sitting at a -205 with a return at a +164. And I will note all the numbers I'm stating tonight are all coming from FanDuel.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing is Jan, depending on where this number is coming fight day, this is a dog or pass, right? I mean, Jan, to me, I know that Rakic has all the tools to beat him, but I think a lot of people are fading him prematurely. I think that it's clear that either he was injured in that fight. And I don't know what's come out and said. I didn't hear anything on that. Whether he was injured in his neck in that fight or whatever it was, in his loss of the belt, you could see the pain on his face. It was evident. I did rewatch that. And so I mean, that could end up playing against me if I were to go with Jan, or for me. He could end up being recouped, and his neck's good, and go out there and just dust Rakic. Or it could end up playing into the narrative again, and Rakic could just coast to either a decision or a late finish. Man, I'm going to leave this one right now because I just think that if depending on what Jan shows up, Jan could either get sort of pieced up and sort of just be sitting back and bewildered at what's happening to him, or you're going to see him come out and just dust him. And I just don't know where to go with it. So it's going to be a dog or pass depending on where the line is, but I'm just sort of staying away from it. Rakic is the real deal. It's, shit talk or not. He's got solid stand up, and well, I don't know. We'll see. What's your thoughts on this one?
It's kind of a tough fight to call, man. Like I've gone back and forth on this one quite a bit. I see a lot of people just on the Rakic side, and I also agree with you on how people are fading on. If you look at the strength of schedule in this one, if you look at Jan's past wins over his last 6, you have Souza, Corey Anderson, Dominic Reyes, and Israel Adesanya, and then his loss to Teixeira. And meanwhile, you look on the other end with Rakic, you have Clark, Manuwa, who isn't in the UFC anymore, Ozdemir, which is, in all fairness, kind of a lackluster fight, to say the least. Smith, where we had Smith, who didn't really show up, and then Thiago Santos, which to me is not the highest strength of schedule, considering you can say 4 out of the 5, maybe 5 out of the 5 of these guys, or even 6 out of the 6 of these guys are on the decline. So I think this fight should be a little bit closer line than it is. I think -205 on Rakic is a little high, but I do believe that if Rakic wins this fight, he's going to be winning it by decision or a late TKO. He hasn't been showing to be overly active in his last couple of fights. He does have a higher strike accuracy and strikes landed per minute than Jan, but that doesn't mean much whenever you look at the strength of schedule on Jan's part. So I like Rakic in the spot because I said Jan's like 39 years old. He's kind of coming on the decline, but I do have some worries in this fight. To me, it's the perfect hedging opportunity. I think you can add Rakic to the top ticket, and then I believe that if Jan wins this fight, man, I believe it's probably going to be by KO, and the KO prop is sitting at plus 420. So I think the hedge is there all day, and probably top ticket
So
Rakic.
even if it's a two-piece with that as a hedge or whatever it is, if we go light on the parlay, unless we find one. I mean, I think that one thing we're going to do is we're not going to force anything.
Yeah,
just sort
sure.
of go fight by fight from now on. We'll pick spot by spot, and I like your assessment of that. I think that Jan could come out and dust him, but at the same time, you're right. The neck injury's there, and then he's 39 years old. Does he recoup? I did go on his Instagram, and although there is quite a bit of training more recently on there, the posts are few and far between, and I haven't been watching the stories as much, so I don't know how active he's been. But yeah, we'll take a look at that as a potential hedge, or even looking at a dog play. See how the scales look, see how they look on the scales, how they line up against each other. That might be a play later on. So we'll move on to the next fight on the card. We got Ian Cutelaba against Ryan Spann. Ryan Spann, initially when I looked at this fight, I'm thinking first in my head, Ian Cutelaba, still worried about the gas tank, even though he didn't look as bad with the gas tank in the last fight. When he was beating up Devin Clark. But then I look at Ryan Spann and I'm thinking, I'm picking him up in my head a little bit more than I think he's worth. And I look at his schedule, and his strength of schedule isn't all that hot. I mean, as much as I'm a Mr. Serkinov fan, he hasn't proved, very successful at the UFC level. And, we have Ryan Spann beating him there. Sam Alvey, I mean, come on. Devin Clark, I mean, so you got to win over Devin Clark, so that's whatever. Antonio Ruggiero Nogueira, okay, come on, really? What are we talking about right now? So his wins aren't really adding up to me. It looks like they almost set him up to become this guy at the top. And I think Cutelaba has way more tools. And if we look at what Anthony Smith did to Ryan Spann, I think that's the blueprint, right? Just he can mix it up with him, and just that's all you got to do with him. And also with guys that are going to get respect from Ryan Spann, that's another thing too. If you can hold him off a little bit, you can then, implement a push up against the cage, take him down, run your chain wrestling, do whatever you got to do. But I think Cutelaba will ride in this. What's the line sitting at again right now? Did I already ask you? Sorry.
You did not. So right now, Ian Cutelaba sitting at minus 225 with the return on Ryan Spann at plus 187.
And I got to be honest, I'm almost there. I think that line is almost right. In my opinion, I think it's pretty well aligned, and conveniently Ryan Spann's at plus 187 murder. And I think that's what's going to happen inside the cage. What's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, honestly, man, I have to agree on this one. I'm actually fairly high on Ian. I think that in his last couple of fights, he's kind of shown that he's kind of evolving this game. He's only 28 years old, despite the fact that, honestly, whenever I was doing my research for this fight, I thought he was a good 34, but that's just me. And honestly, I've never been high on Ryan Spann. I've always faded Ryan Spann. Even at the Anthony Smith fight, people are like, oh, Ryan Spann's good at dog money. I'm like, no, he's not. No. Even if you look at his wins, man, he was a minus 400 favorite against Sam Alvey. And if you go back and watch that fight was a sweat. He did not come out there and look his greatest. And that's against super low level competition, where something we always state on this podcast, man, is that you want to bet on people who are going to fight for your money. That's what this shit is, right? We saw with Rose the other last weekend, that's not a confident bet in respect that, we knew she had those the head issues and didn't always show up. There's 100% chance that Ian's going to show up and fight for your money. Win or lose, he's going to try and win you that bet. And Ryan Spann, to me, in the past has shown that if he gets hit, he gets clipped, he doesn't really want to be there, and he's going to get clipped in this fight. And I said, I haven't really been overly confident in his wins. I don't really understand the hype behind him. I don't think his striking is that good. Even whenever he gets people to the ground, he doesn't look that great. That loss to Johnny Walker was kind of embarrassing in all fairness. And then other than that, as you said, who's he beat? Devin Clark, okay. Antonio Rodriguez. Nogueira, sorry. Luis Henrik. Can you even name these people? Come on. So the strength of schedule isn't there. And I'm on Ian all day, man. As you said, I'm assuming Ian gets it done inside the distance too.
I think if we look at Ian Cutelaba, even if you did that as a top ticket parlay, you just do a two-piece. What's Ian Cutelaba and Rakic together?
Just give me a sec.
Even though I think I'm leaning Jan, man, but there is uncertainty with the age, so you got to be the hedge at the dog spot. So what's under 2.5 sitting at for this fight?
It is juiced as fuck. The under 2.5 right now is sitting at minus 300.
Yeah, okay, no chance. You got to pick a side on it, and that's about it.
Yeah, they're
or
not
go
expecting
Ian
this thing to
Cutelaba.
go the distance, man.
What's a Ian Cutelaba inside the distance?
Minus 150.
I
They
mean, that
got-
could be a play, but I mean, let's just go straight up. Put Rakic together, Cutelaba together. What does that come out to?
If you get Rakic with Kutalaba, you're sitting at plus 113. So you just get the plus money on it.
Okay. It may be an inside the distance play, but we'll see how we want to take a look at that and attack that, see if we can tie something together with a parlay. But for now, I mean, I think at least we know that Ian Cutelaba is the pick. You want to maybe go inside the distance at minus 150. Under 2.5 is too juice to touch it. But if you're going to get on it, I mean, and this is a play you want to touch, I think inside the distance, Ian Cutelaba is probably the best play right now. If you want to parlay him up, I mean, I think he's a parlay piece. I think Span gets dusted. So moving on to the next fighter on the card, you had mentioned someone who fights for your money. We know that Davy Grant fights for your money. Davy Grant is dangerous. Yes, we know that's his nickname. And he comes out and he has lightning and dynamite in his hands. And, you know, he's coming off a tragic loss to Adrian Yanez because he was playing the game with him. He did look like he could have maybe edged that fight out, but that's how Yanez fights it. And Yanez fights it so close to his boxing. Is just so slick with it. Sometimes you think you're hitting him, you're not. And ends up winning that fight, but doesn't take anything away from Grant. And I think that this is going to be a redemption fight for him for sure. Smoka just likes to get hit. I mean, Grant has wins over Jonathan Martinez, Martin Day, losses to Marlon Vera and Adrian Yanez. And even I think he took a round on Marlon Vera as well too. But if we're looking at it, I just think that Smoka, like this is probably a hammer spot in my opinion. I think Davy Grant inside the distance is a play. I think Smoka's going to get KO'd. I think he's been knocked out. Like I'll open it up right now, but I know off the top of my head, I think he's been knocked out at least 4 times. I'm pretty sure. You may have it open, but I'll pull it up right now. But regardless, Davy Grant inside the distance, what's it sitting at right now?
Well, right now it's minus 300 for David Grant on the money line, plus 240 on the return on Louis Smoka. David Grant inside the distance is sitting at minus 120.
Yeah, I mean, Smoka's been knocked out. It even shows here more than 4 times. So coming off of his knockout loss to Vince Morales, I just think that I think he's just going to get caught at some point. David Grant just hits too hard. I think really this is just more of a prop-up fight for him, and maybe even a send Smoka packing fight. So I'm going to hammer this spot. I think. Sorry, what was the line you said again? Sorry.
The money line of David Grant is minus 300 with.
Yep.
Excuse me, the KO prop being at minus 120.
Yeah, and I think that's a spot right there, minus 120, Davy Grant. Definitely something to look at. Even parlayable, I would say, in my opinion. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, man, honestly, I think David Grant is as top ticket as it gets. If you look at that fight with Adrian Yanez, man, like he was a fairly heavy underdog in that fight, and that fight was close and competitive. Came out and won the first round, arguably won the third round, in my opinion. And just, he did what he did, man. He's super active. He's got great striking. He's comfortable on the ground. And that's the Adrian Yanez fight, man. It was a split. And people are super high on this guy. So I think this guy still has a fairly high ceiling in the division, despite the fact that he's a little bit up there in age at this point in his career. But with Louis Smoka, man, like he's got to be on the tail end of his career. I did back him in his fight against Vince Morales. I just thought that he'd be able to weather the storm from Morales, and he got clipped, man. He went right down. Despite that, he hasn't had a decent win in the UFC or even had a decent outing since, I don't think you can name one, like Matheus Nicolau back in 2017. Like everybody else, if you look at this topology and the fights that he had, like he's not fighting guys that are like in the upper echelon. He lost to Matt Chanel. He had a couple fights outside of the UFC. He beat Ryan McDonald in the first round, but who's Ryan McDonald? You know what I mean? Like, so on the strength of schedule basis, like he just really hasn't been fighting the higher echelon. Where David Grant's come out and just proven the fact that he still wants to be in this division. The line is wide, but at the end of the day, I don't think you can expect anything less with if you look at the trajectory of both these guys' career at this point.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think we'll hammer that spot. They may be, if we find a parlay this week, I think we have already. I think it's pretty much yelling at us right now. But we will continue on to the next fight in the card in Caitlin. Cal always fades Chukagian against Amanda Hebus. And really, man, I don't know if I can fade Caitlin anymore, but I'm scared. When you fade somebody so many times and then you jump on the train and then they lose, like, just really bad. Amanda Hebus looking good against Verna Jandarova and, mixing in the grappling with a little bit of beautiful striking in and out. And she looked good. I say beautiful, sorry. It was surprising that she was able to do what she did. So, but yeah, Amanda Hebus coming in against Caitlin Chukagian, who is just a cleaner striker, going to come in and out. Even though it's in the Apex, I think that she's still going to be able to dance around on the outside and do what she needs to do against Amanda. And I just see Caitlin winning this by decision. I can't fade her any longer. I think even if she gets pushed up against the cage a little bit, she'll be able to figure her way out and figure her way off. And I just don't know if Amanda's going to be able to win enough time on top to even warrant a win if this fight stays standing for most of the fight. It's an example of what I was saying before in a women's MMA fight, unless we got, I'll say it, my girl Lupi Godinez. I'm not really looking to bet on dominance like that. There's a couple of women in women's MMA right now where I think that you can look at it like that. Otherwise, you got to look at it. It's going to be a stand-up battle. That's it. No one else is going to really drag. I can't see Amanda dragging her down and dominating her. So I digress, verbal diarrhea, but I think Caitlin Chukagian wins this fight by decision. What's the line on it right now? Money line, then by decision?
The decision prop on Caitlin Chukagian right now is plus 110, and the money line on Caitlin is minus 175, with the return on Rebaz at plus 150.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna go with who's your girl, Caitlin Chukagian, and see what you think about this fight.
Yeah, man, it's like you're gonna see a lot of this on this card, and I think you see a lot from cappers and stuff like that. It's kind of one of these cards where there really is more going to be favorite picks than dogs. I don't see too many live dogs in the spot, and this isn't a spot where I really feel like fading Caitlin. Amanda Ribas is jumping up in weight classes. I don't really understand why. She's gonna be undersized. I find Caitlin to be kind of big for the division, anyways. It's gonna be in the smaller cage, which kind of favors Ribas if she's gonna shoot for the takedown. But like, let's take this back, right? Like, remember whenever Kate Hansen jumped up and fought Jasmine Jastovicius, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're takedowns." But at the end of the day, man, like if you have that big of a size difference for with people, it's gonna play a difference, especially in like women's MMA and stuff like that. Like those are the comparisons I draw from this. I do like Amanda Ribas. I don't understand the jump up, and you see a lot of other people talk about this, and I don't like people jumping up in weight unless they're going to make a commitment to the weight jump. And to me, like, it's like, why are you adding 10 pounds? Like, you're going to add 10 pounds of fat. Like, you're not going to put on muscle to take it back off to jump down to 115. And she already stated she has no intentions of staying at 125. So it doesn't really give me much confidence backing her. Once again, I think she's a good fighter, and maybe she can ground this and ride a decision. But we all know if this stays standing, it's going to be Caitlin yelling out her karate chop yells and landing 3 out of 7 punches, and the judges are going to give her a decision.
Next fight on the card, we have Frank Camacho, 22-9-0 against Manuel Torres, 12-2-0. We have a case here of, when you do tape, you can see a whole bunch on Frank Camacho. And like we looked at before with Manuel Torres, we couldn't really find too much. Obviously, coming off the Contender Series knockout where, there was the eye poke that didn't happen that turned into the finish. I don't know if that really plays, it does play into it, but I think Manuel Torres definitely does have the skills and the firepower and the he's got cement hands. Now, that being said, Frank Camacho does have, although he has been, finished, he's pretty much at the end of his career. He's just riddled in injury from the past and been around for some time now. He wants to strike and he should want to grapple. And he just continues to want to strike, and his striking's not very good. And I just think that, the fight IQ here should play into Manuel Torres's hands, and I think Torres should win the fight. But I don't know, man. I don't want to get caught in a situation because Torres looks so good in Dana White Contender Series, and he gets, just starched by Camacho. So I'm probably going to stay off this one entirely. I could see where people want to try to put value either way, but I'm just going to stay away from this one. What's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, man, as I just mentioned before, not a lot of dogs on this card. This is a dog that I do like. I wish the line was a little bit wider. I thought people would be a bit higher on Miguel Torres. But right now the line sits at minus 138 for Torres with the return on Frank at plus 110. Not the biggest dog show in the world, but for me with that Torres fight, yeah, he looked good against Colin Anglin. That eye poke was the reason there was a TKO, but he was dominating that first round. You got to give him that. But at the end of the day, although Frank hasn't beaten per se the best competitions, that KO to Justin James is a little bit embarrassing. He's been in there with a lot of good guys. If we go through Manuel Torres's record, look at this. He got 10-11, lost to a guy that was 6-0, so that's good competition right there. Beats a guy that's 2-0, beats a guy that's 14-14, 3-1, 0-0, 0-0. And it's something I always preach, man. Strength of schedule has got to be there for me. And I said, I can't really go with the fact that he won that fight by an eye poke and then just understand why he's the favorite in this fight. Frank Camacho's been in there for a long time. He took a long layoff after he had that car accident, and he didn't look very good in his last fight against Justin James, but that was in 2020. We haven't really seen him since. If you follow his Instagram, he's been back in the gym a lot. He's been training, and I like him in the spot, man. And to be honest, though, the only play I'm going to have on this fight is I like Frank inside the distance. It's about plus 220 right now. Because I feel like if he's going to get into a firefight with Torres, somebody's going to hit the ground. And I'm going to take the plus money on the dog on this one. You're only getting a plus 100 on Torres to win inside the distance, which doesn't excite me at all. But I think the safest play and a nice parlay play for this fight is the fight doesn't go the distance, at minus 275. These guys have both been in complete striking wars whenever they like to fight, and somebody's gonna get clipped and somebody's gonna go to sleep.
Next fight in the card, we have Alan Nascimento against Jake Hadley. Jake Hadley coming off of what was a very confusing Dana White Contender Series, still gets in some drama in the back, whatever it is. But regardless, it doesn't take away from how good this guy really is. Jake Hadley has submissions, he has striking, he uses everything, all of his limbs, he utilizes his distance with his legs, his elbows. The guy's got it all. And he has a little bit of attitude and gets in his own way. That being said, the strength of the schedule may be something you might want to look at here as well too. Nascimento has definitely had a little bit of a better strength of schedule. However, here is my fade spot. He lost to Ulanbekov. I don't know. For me, that's just a natural fade anyways. How do you lose to that guy? I'm just not a fan at all of Ulanbekov. And really, I think that Nascimento is also a little bit unremarkable himself. He does have a little bit of he has some decent head chokes. He has a little bit of, he can get the ground game going. His hands are there, but really when it comes down to it, it's just it's unremarkable for the most part. And if I'm going to look at where I want to put my money in this, it's going to be Jake Hadley, but I think the line's probably too far inflated, which then tells me I'm probably just going to want to stay off this one. And I don't know if I want to put a parlay situation in play here, because I just don't know if I trust the head of Hadley if he were to, slip on a banana peel mentally. So I'm going to stay off of it likely, but what's the line sitting at right now?
Right now you have Jake Hadley at minus 220 with the return on Allen at plus 180.
That's actually not too bad. It should be a little bit tighter, I think. But what's your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, we're gonna disagree on this one, man. I actually like Alan a fair bit in the spot. I was watching a lot of Jake Hadley's regional scene tape. He's gonna want to take this fight to the ground. He's gonna want to beat him up a little bit. But you're right, he did lose to Ulanbekov, but I still don't think he lost that fight, man. I had a big bet on Tizier in that one. And if you watch that fight, man, like Tizier just held him down the whole fight. But Allen threw up probably about 100 submission attempts. Now, with somebody like Tizier who trains with the Khabibs and the big Russian aspects you have over there, I assume he's going to be able to defend that. Somebody like Jake, like, I don't know. This is kind of another dog shot for me. I like Allen. I like him inside the distance. I think he'll be able to catch up a submission at some point. But this is just me taking a plus money spot that I see. Jake could easily come down.
Submission props. Sorry. Their submission props either way are pretty well aligned, right? What's it saying right now?
Right now you got a plus 350 with Allen, and with Jake Hadley you got a plus 210.
Yeah. So I mean, whatever way you look at it, I mean, I could see both of them potentially pulling something out. I mean, who knows? Maybe they nullify each other, but I could see definitely the fight finishing. What's fight doesn't go the distance?
Right now, fight doesn't go the distance is minus 110.
Okay, minus 110. That's not a bad play either. That's a really nice play, actually. That might be the play on the fight, I think.
I like it.
Next fight in the card, we have Alan Patrick against Michael Johnson. Michael Johnson, who I honestly didn't think was still fighting in the UFC. I wasn't sure if he had any fights left on his contract. Against Alan Patrick, who's, only fought 3 times since 2018. Fought a couple times actually in 2018, but I mean, really, I don't even know how he's still in the UFC. Losses to Bobby Green, losses to Scott Holtzman, and then his phantom eye poke against Mason Jones. Just looking for a way out. You never put your money into someone like that. It just makes no sense. Against Michael Johnson, then, who is a guy who's gotten his own way his own whole career, who at points has looked like an absolute monster in there, and the power in the hands and his striking just looks so good. But man, I just don't know if you can put your money in on the guy who now, I mean, he's had a lot of losses, and he likes to lose in by decision, and lately more by getting knocked out. I just don't want to touch this fight. Really, I think I spent too much time talking about it. Yeah, you're doing the relevant thing right now. Nice big drink back there, slugging back a beer, because I think that's what everybody should do when fights like this come up. Go outside, smoke a blunt, do what you got to do. No, it will be maybe a decent fight to watch, but as far as betting, it's a stay off completely. I have no angle, not touching it. What's your thoughts? And what's
right now Michael Johnson is a minus 150 with the return on Alan Patrick at a plus 125. I gotta agree, man. Like, so one of the angles most cappers like to take is, and as we stated earlier, is who's gonna fight for your money. The problem is neither one of these guys is, and that's where it makes this tough betting spot. Alan Patrick, or Patrice, or whatever people call him, wanted out of his last fight with Mason Jones. They tried to rebook it. Clearly wanted nothing to do with that fight. I'm sure he would find any excuse in the book. The fact that that fight wasn't stopped was astonishing, and the fact that it took to an eye poke to get him out is astonishing. With Michael Johnson, here, hold up a second. I need to get rid of this fucking cat. We're gonna pause this shit quick. Things. Yeah, so as I say, man, like the problem with this fight is, neither one of these guys really wants to fight for your money, and that's where it makes it tough from a betting perspective. If you look at Michael Johnson, like, he's actually competitive in a lot of the fights, but he has a trouble making it to that third round. Look at his fight against Josh Emmett. Like, Josh Emmett's a guy who's fighting Calvin Kattar coming up, and he looked phenomenal, man. He was up 2 rounds going in the third there, and he was even like pointing at Josh Emmett, acting all cocky and arrogant. Then he got clipped with that right hand. Like, he's not the type of guy these days that really is going to fight for your money. And he's just kind of arrogant, man. Like, and as I said, in the retrospect with Alan Patrice, like, he doesn't want to be in there, His striking's not bad. His takedown defense is bad. Like, but it's, a lot of people are talking about the fact that he trains with Charles Oliveira now and stuff like that we should back this guy. But I don't know, man. I'm with you. This complete stay away. As for a pick, I'm gonna take Michael Johnson, but there's no real confidence in this fight at all.
All right, so we stay away. We save air for things that matter because that fight has already taken too much time. Verna Jandiroba against Angela Hill. I'm actually oddly intrigued by this fight. I backed both girls in different situations, but for the most part, Angela Hill has been a fade because the judges just don't seem to pick her. She loses quite a bit by either unanimous decision or even quite a bit of splits. Verna Jandiroba, we backed her, or at least I think I backed her heavily in her last fight. That didn't work out against Amanda so well. So I mean, she has heavy lumbering strikes. She has solid ground game. But I just think Angela Hill is going to be able to run enough takedown defense and be able to work off of the cage and work wherever she needs to work off of to get back to her striking and get back into her groove. And I think that there's levels, and I think Angela Hill's levels are way higher than Verna Jandiroba's on the feet. I think she's going to piece her up. And I think that this line is disrespectful. I think it's starting to sway towards Angela Hill at this point. But what's the line currently sitting at? I think Angela Hill by decision, or even, I mean, I wanted to stay away from splits, but then Angela Hill pops into the picture and here I go again. But Angela Hill definitely is a decision victory, I think, is the play. Some people are even calling her inside the distance, like a third round sprinkle. But I think Angela Hill is the spot anyways. What's the line sitting at currently?
Right now, Verna Jandiroba is sitting at a -170 with the return on Angela Hill at a +140.
Yeah. I mean, you don't even need to get cute and call any kind of particular. You can just literally take her at, +140 and call it a day. I think Angela Hill rides here. I think she's going to coast into her game and do what she's got to do. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, honestly, this is another dog I like on the spot too. I think she's the most live dog on the spot to win. I thought she won her last fight against Lemos. Even if you call that first round a 10-8, to me it's a draw. So I don't quite really understand how she won that fight. Hill is competitive in every fight she has. And in all fairness, unless Verna takes this fight to the ground, she's probably going to get outstruck. Angela Hill notoriously has decent takedown defense, has a decent get-up game. So I think it's actually a relatively bad matchup for Verna. And I'm with you, man. I think Angela Hill rides that through a decision.
Okay. Next fight in the card, we have Carlos Candelario against Tatsuro Tara. Okay, so, this is one I actually had to watch tape on more. And I had to really, because I think I was leaning more Carlos Candelario, and I know you're on the more the Tatsuro side. I know you'll plead your case on that. And I'm sort of with you. The striking's there. He's aggressive on grabbing necks. He's got a sub game. I mean, I like him. And normally I know we want to fade people coming out of, Southeast Asia. And it's not because of they're coming out of Southeast Asia. It's literally because of lack of competition in some spots. And they don't really have the people to fight. So you see them fight, you see a top caliber guy fighting a guy with an 0-7 record or 30, 50-2 record or something crazy like that. So you're not really getting a good sense as to how good these guys are that are coming out of Southeast Asia. Coming out of Japan, coming out of China. I'm probably not going to get my money anywhere near it because I want to see first. I want to watch the fight and just sort of keep away from it. But as far as a side, I think I'm with you. If you are on that side, I'm pretty sure you are.
Yeah, honestly, this fight, whenever this fight first came out, man, I was big on the Carlos Candelario side. And now I've kind of gone back and forth. I kind of like the Tizir side. It's tough, man. You want to fade what you don't know, and that's what makes this fight tough for me. You haven't really seen a lot of the guys come up from there recently. So although he looks good, it's kind of like, well, where do you land in the situation? Where with Carlos, we know what he's been doing. You can follow him. You can follow his strength of schedule. You know the guy's been fighting. And I just think the price is wide. And that's where I follow myself on the Carlos side. But as for a bet on this fight, man, I really just don't think there's a spot that I like. I think -250 is downright disrespectful for a guy that hasn't proven himself in any way, shape, or form. And, we might see this guy come out and starch Carlos in the first round, but that's yet to be proven. So I think anybody should keep their money away from this fight, man. It's tough. But that being said, if you are going to play Tari, how do you say this guy's name? Tatsuro. Let's go with Tatsuro. That's an easier one.
That's it. Yeah.
if you're gonna play the zero line, Johnny can't get pissed to pronounce this guy's name right. I think you take the inside of the distance. I think plus 110. He notoriously finishes his fights relatively early and by submission. I think that gets you away from that minus 250 and makes it a little bit more of a juicy line.
Yeah, Wellington Turnman is your favorite fighter, isn't he? Turnman?
I don't even want to learn how to pronounce that guy.
Next fight on the card, we have someone who I've been backing, but I don't know if I can touch it this time. We have Nick Maximov and his boring John Fitch-esque style, but it's effective. 8-0-0, coming in against Andre Petrosky, 7-1-0. And really, I think the line's getting disrespectful in this point with Andre Petrosky, but here's my problem. Petrosky has shown moments in fights where his head's not all there, and he's also gassed at points in fights. And Maximov is going to be equally as strong as him. And when Petrosky even tries to implement a wrestling game plan and is met with the same strength, I think that's going to gas him very quick. So I think if this stays on the feet and Petrosky can figure that out, he's going to knock out Maximov potentially. Because, I mean, Maximov, yeah, he does have a granite head, but Petrosky does have power in his hands, and that potentially could be a play. But I'm just so heavy on Maximov, man. I mean, I think he just grabs people, and sure, he can hold them down, and people don't like that and whatever else. But I mean, he can do that until you get him not to, or get him off, or get him to stop doing it. So I mean, Petrosky might be that person that stops the Maximov train of John Fitch-esque style of finishes. But man, I don't know. It's hard to touch the point right now. What's the line sitting at? It's a minus 400 or something stupid.
Yeah,
like
minus
that.
400 with the
I don't even get this line.
On Andre
Like it has to be a dog or pass, and I feel like Maxwell is probably going to win this fight, but I think that it has to be a dog or pass. You may have a different take on it completely. I could see both sides of it. I could see Petrosky keeping it on the feet and maybe not gassing out as bad as we may think, and landing better strikes, but being more aggressive in the actual wrestling on the ground and grapple changes and actually landing some strikes on the ground too. And if it goes to decision, he wins based on that alone. But man, I just don't know. I don't know where the line's at. It's already making it easy for me to stay away from it. But what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think let's be real. From a betting perspective, we'll do this two ways, man. The betting perspective, breakdown perspective. Breakdown perspective, I think Maximov is probably going to win this fight by a really boring decision. Andre Petrosky generally has not the greatest gas tank, and the two fights he's had in the UFC where he's won hasn't really been against the most high-level competition. I bet against Nick Maximov, against Soriano, and I got burned. And in all fairness, it kind of made me Nick Maximov love it. Like, I think he's a good dude. I think he's I was heavily surprised at how well his gas tank held up. I think the line's a little bit disrespectful, considering his striking isn't good, and he's very reliant on the fact that this fight needs to be on the ground and he's facing another wrestler. So I don't really agree with the line. But from a betting perspective, this one to me is very easy. Nick Maximov is clearly going to be a parlay piece for most people this week. If you look at the line, the KO TKO submission I'm back to Bet365 because they didn't have this one on FanDuel, but the finish prop is plus 150. The decision prop is plus 120. So if you're somebody like most of us who bet MMA, you're going to parlay this and you're going to have multiple parlays going. If you have a strong parlay, add both of these into the same parlay and be willing to lose your $30 bet and get a plus money in there. Because regardless, Nick Maximov is probably going to win this fight. We'd all be astonished if he didn't. And you're getting a plus money right off the bat to start your night off. Don't fucking play the money line. You can bet both of his props and his win conditions at $100 bet regardless, and you're still going to come off with a profit. But don't fucking play minus 400 on a money line. That's absurd. Doesn't make any sense. And then
Petrosky land the big overhand right and everything you just said.
You know what? It's MMA, man. I would not be surprised.
All right, so we look at it. I know Maximov is a play. I don't know if he's a parlay piece for me, just for what I just said, that reason. And I just don't think that the minus 400 chalk is worth it at this point. There's a reason why he was near the main event, co-main event, and now he's the top ticket or the first fight on the card. All it takes is one person to keep it on the feet. That's it. And then we might be in a totally different ball game, and it might be minus 200 Andre Petrosky going into the second round. So if we're going to look at strong plays, I mean, I know that you're on Alan Nascimento, potentially by submission. I'm on the other side of that. I think, and literally the other way too with a submission. But I'm still probably going to stay away from that as far as betting. I think what we're going to probably look at, we have Caitlin Chikagian by decision, strong play. What's that sitting at?
Plus 110.
Davy Grant inside the distance. What's that sitting at?
Minus 120.
Or if we look by KO, that's likely going to be the win condition. So Davy Grant inside the distance or by KO, Caitlin Chikagian by decision. I like both those plays. I know you're on board with those. If you want to try to look at a parlay, do you have any parlay pieces? I like Davy Grant, Ian Kotalaba, and Rakic.
If I had David Grant do that, you're sitting at plus 182. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, man, but odds are that thing's gonna fucking hit. And throw $100 on that. Honestly, even then, if you throw Caitlin Chikagian, if you want to get a little bit more with it, you got Caitlin Chikagian by decision, and you're flying on that one, man. You're sitting at a plus 208 or
I think even with those top four pieces, though, I think there's multiple different options you could look at it with. You could take two pieces, put them together, and parlay it up, or you could look at win conditions because some of them are pretty deliberate as to how they're going to play out. So, yeah, man, I think we definitely found some good spots. And then your dog play, I think I'm on Angela Hill. I think that's my main dog play. But I know you were looking at Camacho. What's your main dog play?
Yeah, Angela Hill to me is the most live dog on this card, but I like Frank as well. I think that he's probably going to win. I think he's going to win inside the distance. Other dog shots.
Well, we still sort of thought it's a potential stay off, but at the same time, I totally get what you're saying with the idea of it being the dog. Just from the strength of schedule, regardless. Sometimes you see somebody who's been getting beat by a lot of the guys at a higher level. When someone steps in, coming up from a lower tier, they just get dusted. And, he can make Manuel Torres look silly. So I'm definitely understanding your pick on that in the dog shot, but I'm definitely with the Angela Hill as dog play of the week. And, Michael Johnson and Alan Patrick is going to be the bag of donkey dick play of the week. Whatever way you go on that, it's up to you. I feel sorry for you on that. And I like your sort of angle that you played on the first fight of the night. You look at Nick Maximov and Andre Petrosky as well, too. So I think we've hit all spots. Anything else you want to add in, sir?
No, that's it, brother. I love it.
Okay, as always, we love to chop it up, talk shit. We had a little bit of a rough one last week. A couple spots we hit, a couple spots we didn't. Loopy. And we move forward into this next fight card. I think we found some good spots. But as always, if you like us, great. I love that we have the support. If you don't like us and you're still listening, then
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Hey, I'm UFC President Dana White, and you're in the ring with Callum McGregor.
They're staring at me.